Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers and Good morning, viewers, and welcome. Welcome to the Tobago Updates Morning Show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Yes, folks, it's Tuesday, the 14th of March, 2023. As we continue to give God thanks for life, I am Julian Skeet.
And I am Maria Richardson George, and this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Good morning to Tobago, good morning Trinidad, those of you viewing in the Caribbean, and those of you on the live. Good morning to you. Julian, how you do today?
Good, Ria. It's a beautiful morning. We continue to give God thanks indeed. Beautiful start to the day.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
I'm quite relaxing, getting a few things done in and around. You know how that natural Monday to Friday work week goes.
Yes,
nothing too unusual, or rather nothing as unusual as the news may put out there in the happenings and the, I don't know whether to call it a battle, whether to call it an impasse, whether to call it some disagreements, difference of opinions between the government and the DPP on this entire matter, the recent throwing out of that airport case and so on. And then the back and forth that has automatically started in relation to staffing and insufficient staffing. And the issues continue to flow. Very interesting developments. You even have the AG and the PM giving their own perspective in relation to the DPP and the DPP's office.
And how did you term it just a little while ago?
I'm not sure. I don't know whether to call it an impasse, a disagreement, a discussion, a viewing publicly or putting out there publicly of perspectives. But nonetheless, very interesting developments.
Very interesting indeed.
We've got to pay close attention.
All right. So what have we got coming up this morning?
Well, this morning we're going to start the discussions. Highly anticipated. A guest this morning is Sharon Rowley, the wife of the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and attorney at law. Somebody told me, let's not forget, attorney at law, inclusive of her professional capacity. That's while right. She provides, that side-by-side kind of support. Again, one of my female friends says, we don't say behind every good man anymore.
No.
Side by side. So yes, I'm taking that teaching.
Gone are those
so
days.
Yes, that kind of able support, critical, looking at that family side. So I'm really looking forward to those discussions this morning to give a little insight and perspective into the lady herself, one who is well respected and a lot of persons admire and certainly follow. So we look forward to those discussions this morning.
All right, so we're going to chat a little bit more a little bit later on in terms of what's coming up on the program this morning. Yeah, so.
All right. So at this point, we prepare to head on over to news in 90 seconds.
Thank you so much, Julian and Ria. And here is your news in 90 seconds for Tuesday, the 14th of March, 2023. The court denied an appeal to strike down Attorney General's lawsuit against the THA over Watson Duke's appointment as Deputy Chief Secretary. At the same time, he still held the position of President of the PSA in 2021-2022. On Monday, Justice of Appeal Myra Dean Amora and Malcolm Holdip, who ruled that the case before Justice Margaret Mohammed can proceed, although Duke will no longer be a part of it. Mohammed must also consider whether the claim against THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine should remain. The appeal court judge ruled that Mohammed could not be faulted for concluding that the matter was not academic because there were two periods of overlap when Mr. Duke held office in all three organizations before his respective resignation. Additionally, motorists are advised that they are unable to access the Montgomery Road before Rapid Response Security Services and the People's Pentecostal Church. According to a statement from the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries, Urban Development, the road is closed to facilitate repair work where the land began to slip. The division, however, could not say whether the repair could be completed. And finally, 500 invitations would be distributed to members of the public for the inauguration of Christine Kangaloo. The inauguration of Christine Kangaloo as the 7th president of Trinidad and Tobago. The invitation have been available since yesterday and would be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis. The invitations are available at 5 locations: Shore Park Cultural Complex, Shore Park in Tobago, and the National Academy of Performing Arts, Napa in Port of Spain, and Sapa in South. The Arima Bowl Corporation also is going to be able to distribute those invitations as well as Extra Food Plaza in Trinidad. And that was your news in 90 seconds.
Yes, thank you very much there, Chanel. Is it safe to say, well, you took her right off. We're not going to have a quick conversation. Welcoming Chanel back here indeed. Folks, we gotta commend that energy. You know, Chanel, it's safe to say, straight off the jumbo jet. I don't even know if Chanel is into soca. All right, beautiful start indeed there. And again, we see the continued developments happening in the court in relation to even the Tobago matter, that matter involving the Tobago House of Assembly. Yeah. You know, and the determination being made, the THA feeling that the case was really a waste of the court's time, but certainly it being pursued and so on. Very interesting, and we look forward to see what the outcome of that will be. Because as was very nicely said, that was at a time where Watson Duke was holding the office of Deputy Chief Secretary, and the concerns that at the same time, you know, he would have been holding other responsibilities when he assumed that office, and more importantly, other paid responsibilities by the state, and therefore the question as to whether or not that would have been acceptable. So it's left to be seen how these things go, especially now with the change in status where he no longer holds that portfolio. All right, at this point, dears, we're heading on into our birthday celebration. Birthday celebrations happening now.
All right, so we start things off this morning celebrating Shelley Henry. Shelley Henry, happy birthday going out to you this morning, and we trust that you have a great one. You look lovely. God is good. Life is good. Do enjoy.
All right, and this birthday greetings goes out to, this morning we are celebrating Arnold Rees, and we want to send you a happy 65th birthday. And this is coming from your children, Melissa, Rachel Ann, Sean, and Shaquille Rees, sending you birthday blessings. And this is one of our loyal viewers out of Trinidad, my father's very good friend as well. So sending birthday blessings to you. We trust that you enjoy the celebrations, Arnold Rees.
And then we've got Christopher Joseph celebrating his birthday today, or belated birthday. Happy birthday going out to you, Christopher Joseph. We trust that you had a great one. In fact, celebrate all month long. Do enjoy. And we've got Shirlene Ford, a belated birthday greeting. Shirlene, you look lovely with your birthday shoot. We trust that you had a great one. Happy belated going out to you. Vernella Beard, who celebrated her birthday. Happy belated birthday going out to you this morning. Vernella Beard, trust that you had a great one. It's all about celebrating all month long. And we've got Misha Trim, who also celebrated. We've got a few belated birthday greetings. Misha Trim, happy belated going out to you, Misha. Do enjoy the rest of the month. Celebrate all month long.
We've got on screen at the moment Liana Alexander. We're sending the belated birthday greetings going out to Liana Alexander. I love the matching background, how it connects with the outfit. Happy birthday to you.
And we've got Curtis Balfour, the man himself. Curtis Balfour celebrating his birthday. Curtis Balfour, have a great one. And lots of love from all of us here at Tobago Updates.
Oh, and this lady on screen, and I know we got follow-up images with her. Some
Yes.
call her hot stepper, some call her diva, some say she's defying age altogether. We're sending a birthday shout out to Councillor Sertica Williams. We want to wish you a happy, happy birthday and God's continued blessings. We have on screen my very good friend Tonya Osman Ramsey, wishing you a happy birthday and God's blessings. Take a little time out, enjoy yourself, relax. All right, happy birthday to you, Tonya. On screen again, another one of my very good friends out there, Andrew Sparks. I want to wish you continued God's blessings doing your thing. As we know you continue to keep focused. I'm very proud of all your achievements to date. I want to wish you the very best and happy birthday to you. But how could they miss that hot step up
That's
picture?
the one I was looking for. I was looking for it in red.
Shirt. The lady in red shirt.
Because I fell in love with this photo.
I know they're going to pull that up for us. Momentous moment there
That's
again.
the shot.
Yes,
that's the $1 million shot.
This is the birthday lady standing tall. I want to continue to wish you God's blessings each and every. We trust that you have enjoyed the celebrations fully.
Definitely,
All
definitely.
right.
The lady in red.
Yes, and at this point, Rhea, I know we spoke about, in terms of heading into our rundown this morning, I know we spoke about having the wife of the Prime Minister on attorney at law, Sharon Rowley. And who else do we anticipate on the rundown this morning?
All right, so we start things off with Mrs. Rowley, and we continue the discussion this morning, chatting with members of the Student Support Services, Susan Grant and Marian Kent. They're going to both be representing Student Support Services and focus on DIRTEC's Student Support Services and DIRTEC's exceptional education needs. So that's the topic of discussion.
All right, and this
morning.
Later on this morning, we wrap with the role of Labor of the Labor Inspectorate Unit, and we'll be chatting with Nicole Thomas, Labor Inspector 2 of the Ministry of Labor. At this point, viewers, we head on over to Tobago in Focus.
For those who have plans to pursue tertiary education or are already enrolled, there is a Department of Advanced Training that aids with grants and bursaries. This department exists within the Division of Education, Research and Technology.
We provide financial assistance to persons who decide to pursue tertiary education or who are pursuing tertiary education. We also provide persons and advisory service to persons who require that type of advice, both financial as well as career guidance. And we try to also provide persons with placement. For those persons who would have actually received the funding from us, we try to place them in facilitate their placement in jobs.
To access these services, one must apply to an institution of study, and the institution must be accredited. In order to be facilitated, the program being pursued must also be accredited.
The idea is that we want to see that the person, whoever the person is and whatever the person, what the institution is, the important thing is that the institution is accredited and the program is accredited. But much more than that, that the person is also pursuing something that would be of benefit to Tobago and in Trinidad and Tobago for that matter.
The assistance being offered by the department has a wide range. Assistance can be anywhere from tuition expenses to living expenses. It can also include meals, transportation, books, and so forth. An applicant needs to state what they require and what the expenses are that need to be covered. The application will then be vetted and it will be determined what assistance you will receive. You can connect with the department via the THA website, tha.dert.gov.tt, or through the division's head office at 299-0781.
Yes, good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning shows. We continue this morning's discussion. We are heading straight on into our conversation with our very first guest on with us this morning, Sharon Rowley, attorney at law and wife of the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. Good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning to you and to Trinidad and Tobago, all your viewers.
All right, I think it is safe to say we certainly want to welcome you. I think this is your first appearance here on the Tobago Updates morning show, and we're happy to have you.
It certainly is, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure indeed, Mrs. Rowley. Let me take the opportunity this morning to say happy belated yet International Women's Day to you.
Thank you very much. And you took in front of me because I was going to say Happy Women's Day to you and to the rest of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, because every day is Women's Day and we should be celebrated.
Most definitely. Now let's get right into things here as we focus on the issue here at hand. International Women's Day. This year's theme: Embrace Equity. Give us an idea. Share with our viewers this morning, if you may, your thoughts on the appropriateness of this particular theme.
I think it is an excellent theme, going hand in the United Nations goal for sustainable development by the year 2030. That means if we are to follow that, we have until just 8 more years. And Sustainable Development Goal, which is one of the 17 goals which the United Nations in 2014 set forth to achieve, is goal number 5, which deals with gender equality and the empowerment of women. And if we are to achieve that, to spur us around in doing that, they come up with these themes on a yearly basis. And in this regard, I think as we move along, following the basic tenet that nobody's to be left behind, and we are looking at our women folk, then we must embrace fairness in dealing with them. We must seek gender equality and gender equity, fairness when we are dealing with women. Equal work, equal pay. Everything else that we need to get us there, to strike that balance between male and the female individual. And I think Embrace Equity is one of those themes which could take us throughout the year and into the next 8 years.
Yes, you are certainly known for your work and efforts in terms of connecting with women, both within the professional sector as well as providing that support to those who are not yet at that level. How important do you think that is, women particularly lending that level of support to each other, indeed, in embracing this, equality?
I think it's important that we as a group of women support each other. There are those who cannot speak for themselves. I call them the voiceless ladies in our country. And it is important that those who have a platform to speak use that platform to speak for those who live in silence, those who live in fear. And if we as women are able to do that, then we bring out a whole group of our sisters who are in many cases, who live in despair. And if we can help to bring them out, if we can help to give them that hope, then that is our job. We have to be our sister's keeper.
And I love how you said that. We have to be our sister's keeper. With the theme for the United Nations this year, Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. The aim is to highlight the gender gaps in STEM education and careers. And I will just remind our viewers this morning, for those of you listening, that STEM is the acronym for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. What are your thoughts, Mrs. Rowley, on women and girls being important players in this STEM arena?
Basically, I think that over the years, we have found that women and girls do not gravitate to the STEM subjects. I think if we were probably to do a survey on that, it would be shown that that tends to be, unfortunately, the domain of the male population. Of course, there are those who have done the STEM subjects and are really exceeding in that area. But if we admit to ourselves, we are in the minority. And in that regard, I say that we have to start at the schools, primary school level, where we encourage our girls, our young girls, to get involved in those subjects and to view your career in terms of a scientist or someone in the technological field. Because increasingly, we are moving to a totally digital world. We have government, which is digitizing. We have all other institutions who have followed that path of becoming a digital world. And therefore, we have to get our women, our ladies involved so they are not behind. And in that regard, I say, again, the platform is to be used not only by women calling out other young girls and women to come into the digital field, but by men joining in and say, come and join us. Let us work side by side. If we are to achieve, I come back to the goal of 2030, if we are to achieve that social development, environmental development, and generally development of our countries to the level that one is hoping for by 2030.
And Mrs. Rowley, where would you say Trinidad and Tobago ranks in the scheme of keeping on track with this particular theme? Are we there? Are we ready? Are we almost there? Are we on track?
I will say of all the options you have given me that we say we are on track. Because in Trinidad and Tobago, we are never left behind. So we join, I use the word bandwagon, and we move forward. We are not there. In fact, I don't think any country in the world globally is there yet. But we have a goal. We know what we are moving towards. Technology, innovation are becoming increasingly important in globally. And therefore, we must join and we must ensure that digitization becomes part, the word becomes a household word.
As we look at the team, speaking to empowering our women and girls, you are married to one of our top office holders in the country. And I just want to get your feel from the perspective of encouraging other females and girls. Is there ever a case of, as some would say, feeling intimidated? Because you appear to be a powerhouse, even on your own, by virtue of, the identity of a Sharon Clark Rowley, separate and apart from even looking at the collective. What do you say to other, women and others from the standpoint of, whether it be, don't be intimidated at all? I'm trying to get a sense from you as a woman. Is that ever an issue?
For me, yes, it has been. And I think with age, probably, and experience, I have developed a level of confidence that one even allows me to speak to you. There was a time when I would have said, okay, I was not available for an interview, or I would not go on a public platform and speak. I probably still would not go on a public political platform to speak. But I feel that you as an individual, we talk about embracing equity, but you as an individual must embrace yourself. And when I say that, I mean that you have to understand you before you reach out to help others, before you reach out to embrace equity. And once you know who that authentic person is, that the real you, then you can then move and follow the path that you as an individual want to set for yourself. You not to be, you look around and you see what goes on and who you admire, who is your role model. But in the end, you have to be your own role model. And I tell young people that we look around and we see role models, and that's your guide, but you be your own role model. You be the one who develops your self-esteem. You understand about respect. At the school level, you know that I'm there. Education is one of my goals, and it should be one of the goals of not only of women, but of men, because without a good education, really there's nowhere for you to go. And education doesn't only mean an academic education, it goes beyond that. And then we then must, as women and girls, as part of your being empowered, understand that firstly, education is important.
Now, as Julian mentioned, Mrs. Rowley, yours is a very influential voice in Trinidad and Tobago, in large part due to the fact that you're esteemed due to your esteemed position of being the wife of our Prime Minister. Mrs. Rowley, how do you define your role in our national efforts to bridge the gender equity gaps here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, I
We
see
are on
that.
track. Sorry, you mentioned earlier
Yes,
that we are on track. So you can take it
that's
from there.
okay. I see that as wife of the Prime Minister, I have been given a platform which I could use to promote one. I say in trying to achieve gender equality, one of the things we have to is eliminate gender-based violence, eliminate interpartnership violence, so that if we are to do that, and if I am allowed to speak against these things, then I will take every opportunity to do that. And this being International Women's, I would say, month, a year, because as I said before, every day for me is International Women's Day, Women's Day. And if I use that platform and every opportunity given to me, at least I can be that voice for what I call the voiceless persons who live in fear. You know, I always say singing Francine talks about run away. But it's not so easy to run away if you feel he will kill you dead. It is not so easy to pack up your bags and sneak out of the house, because some men will follow you and they will follow you until they kill you. So if we have persons who are able to speak for those women, to speak to the men about their behavior, then I see that as a role that I have undertaken to help other women, other sisters. As I said before, be your sister's keeper.
Be your sister's keeper, indeed. Does your fight or does your role in this fight extend to the Caribbean region, or is it localized to Trinidad and Tobago?
Oh no, I say that it extends regionally, and simply because as wife of the Prime Minister, I am also right now an executive member of a group called the Spouses of CARICOM Leaders Action Network. And it is an action group comprising spouses of heads of state and prime ministers, which has set about to improve the lives of women, young people, and children. And again, following the UN's tenet. But what we do, we have a number of pillars which we are given the liberty of choosing. And my two pillars are cervical cancer, because I have a vested interest in seeing the elimination of cancer, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the region. And in that regard, I am patroness of the Caribbean Association of Oncology and Hematology, which deals with increasing cancer awareness throughout the region, encouraging people to go to screening and so on. And my other pillar is that of the elimination of domestic violence. So whatever I do here, we tend to spread throughout the region. The speeches, the encouragement, we treat throughout the Caribbean and with our other members of ESCLAN.
We look at and we hear attorney at law, we hear wife of the Prime Minister, but we also see and know for a fact successful mom in terms of that engagement with family life. What would be your message particularly to girls, as we celebrate, our International Women's Day, International Women's Month, to continue to encourage and to guide them along this pathway, especially the society that we live in today, where some feel a little daunted by the many things happening out there and aren't always as confident as they should?
Basically, I'm going to go back to the UN theme of embrace equity and embrace yourself. But I always say, and I've always said to my daughters, particularly with regard to the education, do best. You could not do better than your best. If you come from a less fortunate sector of the society, do not be intimidated. You can be whoever you want to be. You must dream big. And everybody talks about dreaming big. But what I say is, you dream, but get up and act. Do what you want to do. Be the person you want to be. Be proud of what you do, and let us all be proud of you.
I know the focus this morning is on our women and our girls, but what would be your message to our men? Because they also play a very critical role in gender-based violence. They also play a major role. So what would be your message to our men and our boys?
To them, I say, one, again, embrace equity, embrace fairness, understand that this is a world where Trinidad and Tobago, for instance, it is almost an equal distinction between ratio between men and women, just about 1% difference. So you, as a man, you are no better than women. We are all equal. And the bird, I say, has two wings. We can't fly, that bird can't fly if one wing is broken. We have to assist in keeping those wings at a balance. We work together, both men and women. You as a man, I encourage you, you boys, you have to respect yourself first and respect women. And know that you are there, we are there to help each other. We can walk hand in hand along that road to gender equality, which, as I say, is set for 2030. But there's some who say that we need another 150 years. I don't want to go by that. That is way too far for us as women to be considered on the same level as men. So to the men, I say, you embrace equity. You understand about the fairness. You understand about equality and respect.
Okay. A question coming in from the live on the live this morning. What is the hardest thing you've had to deal with as a woman and having a husband so high in public life?
The hardest thing, I mean, I stop and I think, and I really thought that life was moving along quite easily without anybody having anything negative to say about you. So I was probably living in a bubble. So that I would probably say it has been dealing with what should I say? Dealing with malice and dealing with individuals who do not respect you as an individual, as a person. And but I remember early in 2015, somebody asked me about that Teflon image. And at times it becomes necessary to have a Teflon image, and you feel that that person must be invincible. But in the end, I am human and with human emotions, and you have to learn to deal with what comes your way once you are in the arena, political arena.
Another question coming in here on the live for you, Mrs. Rowley. If you had the chance to see your younger self today as a woman, what would you say to her? Sharon Rowley.
That's right. So I'm looking back to myself as Sharon Clark. I'm dropping the Rowley because as a young woman, that's who I was. And I would say, be confident about yourself. Ensure that you have a proper education. Ensure that as you go along, you have proper morals, values, and it is important to have a spiritual connection. Ensure that you have that faith in the Almighty to take you along that journey, which is called the journey of life.
Very, very interesting. And I'm sitting here in this interview, very encouraging and motivating. Just hearing you in terms of telling us about that story. Many look to you in terms of as a mentor, as a mother, really being that kind of inspiration and guide in terms of our nation and even beyond the walls of just Trinidad and Tobago. I want to get an idea from you. Is there anyone that you would say serves as that mentor for you, or someone you look up to, whether within the Trinidad and Tobago, in the region, or the world at large, perhaps?
You know, I mean, this is not the first time I'm being asked that question. And I honestly have to say, I mean, she's not here with me today, but my mother had to be my role model. She was an exceptional. She was not, I mean, she didn't go to university, but she had that innate knowledge. She knew what life was about. And she imparted, and my father imparted values in me and my two sisters that we have benefited from forever. So, in terms of role model, Edna Clark.
Thank you. And it seems maybe our mothers are related because mine was the same.
Exactly, and I'm sure many people have that role model in their lives.
That's right. That's right. Now, Mrs. Rowley, finally, can you share with us a little bit about our Tobago-born Prime Minister whose heart you stole many moons ago and who became your life partner? Without giving away too many secrets, how would you rate our PM in terms of his support for you, a powerful, independent, successful, professional woman, and the wife who is always by his side?
110%. Simply that. I mean, I say I could not ask for more in a husband when it comes to supporting his wife and his family. Keith has been my rock. As you say, we got married in 1985, so that's quite some time ago. And for that entire period, through thick and thin, he has supported everything that I have done. So, in that regard, I wouldn't change that husband, right?
Definitely. I know some persons would have asked along the way, was he ever threatened by your success? Was he ever threatened?
Never. Because I think if it comes to success, I honestly think that he has been probably more successful than I have been. And he is comfortable in his shoes. So that I certainly am not a threat to him.
Okay. And I have to applaud your choice of color for your nails this morning, because I noticed that we're wearing the same colors this morning. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, possibly it just could be that it is related. I could use that when the people ask me about it. I say, okay, the color for International Women's Day and for women is purple. So it just so happened. That's right. We embrace, right? We embrace the color and we embrace equity. So it just so happens that my purple nails go hand in hand with the theme.
Right, most definitely.
Kudos and commendations. All I can say is certainly thank you so much, Sharon
It has
Clark
been a
Rowley.
pleasure.
And I want to, just put that added comment out there. Many continue to admire. It's good that you can show an excellent combination of both beauty and brains. So you can do this thing with a classy, with a kind of a sense of style. Rightfully said by one of our viewers, a woman of class. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Thank you for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Indeed, thank you so much. And Mrs. Rowley, we would love to have I think she's gone, but we would love to have a sit-down interview with Mrs. Rowley at some time in the near future. Yes, sorry, you're back with us, yes. We were just saying that we would love to have a nice sit-down interview with you at some point in time in the future. I think there's so many aspects of your life that can be a blessing to our public once you are willing to sit and chat with us here at Tobago Updates.
It would be my pleasure. You just tell me and I will make the time. You know how I'm Trinidad and Tobago, so I can always come across if you wish. My pleasure.
As if one would say.
Yes. We appreciate it indeed, and it was a pleasure indeed chatting with you this morning.
Again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly, it's always so encouraging. And I love the fact she gives me that, one who I also admired very much, Michelle Obama. you can be that authority on your own.
Yes.
And at the same time, you can add significant value to the team within the context of marriage. And if any of my friends know me, they're probably saying, Julian, you're on a high this morning.
Yes.
Because these kinds of interactions are really, I feel it serves so well. Because simple words that might be expressed, but reaching the hearts of many in terms of those very expressions and reminders to some who take the little things for granted.
Definitely, and it is all in understanding your role. And I have to say, Julian, that I enjoyed that interview immensely. It was the first time, of course, that we've had Mrs. Rowley on the program, but it certainly won't be the last. We can certainly say that.
I'll be tuned into your sit down.
Definite. All right. So what else have we got coming up, Julian?
Coming up in the lineup, we have Susan Grant and Marion Kent, and representatives of the Division of Education, Research and Technology. And this morning we're speaking student support services and exceptional educational needs. So we look forward to those upcoming discussions this morning with the Division of Education, Research and Technology. And this is the point, Ria, where we certainly remind our viewers, those of you joining us via TV, those listening in, we want to say thank you so much for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show. And those of you online, this is your reminder to share the live, share the live, share the live.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Yes, everyone, it's your boy Harry here from Authentic Builders. And this Saturday, the 18th, we will be having our massive Construction Day sale and customer giveaway. And on this day, we will also be launching our new menu, sale menu of Trinidad prices right here in Tobago on blocks, steel and lumber. And also having free giveaways for the kids. So come on down to Authentic Builders this Saturday, located right here at Old Torbay Local Road.
Welcome to Authentic Builders.
Welcome to L'Image Parfait Day Spa, your urban oasis and wellness center. Our services includes massages, treatments, facials, pedicures, weight management, detox programs, and much more. Call us today at 624-1452 or 720-7474. Trinidad locations and Bonacord, Tobago at 273-7772. Let us treat you like the VIP you are.
Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your nice car get damaged bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. Don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry. If your house get flooded out real bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. If sickness catch you off guard, I tell them never ever worry. If times fall on you real hard, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil will always be here for you.
Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
Put a smile on your face when you're you're moving from place to place. Good morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back. It is 7:42 a.m. and yes, that's the junction there. If you're heading into Scarborough, heading to Glen Road, or just on that at Fred between the west and heading east, that's the vicinity there where we're seeing the traffic flow happening in that area. So it's 7:42 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. On set with us this morning, we are speaking the Division of Education, Research and Technology. We're speaking about the student support services and also treating more specifically with exceptional education needs. And on set with us, we have representing the student support services, Susan Grant and Marian Kent. Morning, and welcome to you, ladies.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here.
All right. Well, before we even dive in, we just had that interview starting off with the wife of the Prime Minister.
Yes.
And, Ria would say very nicely, as I have these two ladies on set, just give us a quick touch. International Women's Day, the significance and the standout for you as a professional woman in society.
Well, I'll start first, Susan Grant, and thank you for having me here. And I grew up with a strong mother, and I listened to Dr. Sharon Rowley speak about her mother and the impact it had on her. And my mother, I thank God that she's living, and she was the role model for me, one of the strongest women I know, who taught me to speak up and to be assertive and, how to be strong, but also, and I know it's not a term that we use all the time, be a wife and manage a home. And I thank God for that duality. She was also a businesswoman, or is a businesswoman, so she showed me all of that. And it paved the way for me to be in this field and be in this position and not second guess myself and not be intimidated by circumstances, and to be there for other girls also. So that is what that means to me.
Nice.
So for me, my mom, now deceased, she was the person, she was a praying woman. And that was really critical, and that was really the drive that has me at the place that I am now. She's a person who, when she prayed about it, I took wings. So for me, being here in Tobago is me really living my dream, living and being the person I wanted to be since I was maybe about 6 years old, who I wanted to. So I think for me, my mom has always been that person who understood what our purpose was and recognized that God was a significant factor, and really encouraged us to be confident and do so. So I think those were the things that really have me at the place I am right now. So confidence is really important.
Certainly, and it seems quite naturally that this background, one would say it's almost as though the profession chose you, because we are speaking about your area of work in terms of student support services, which, as far as I have seen it over the years, is much more than just a job, because you are touching and impacting lives. Let's start off from that premise in terms of looking at the role of the Student Support Services Unit within the Division of Education, Research and Technology.
Right. So Student Support Services is what it says. We support our students in our schools, our ECCE, our primary and our secondary schools, help them to transition through the school system indirectly, or directly, I should say, through counseling, through support, through assessments, even through home visits, and then indirectly where we connect them to services to deal with some of the challenges that they may face, whether it's the challenge of choosing a career, whether it's the challenge that they may face at home because of their home situation, finances, because some unforeseen situation came in and it threw them off course through special needs. They may have a disability, and we step in and we provide direct and indirect, connecting them to services that we may not be able to provide to help them navigate this educational landscape. And of course, we do that through the support of all our officers within Student Support Services. Our school psychologist, Ms. Kent, is one, our school social workers, our guidance counselors, and special ed teacher that we have in the unit to help navigate or help our students navigate through school and, you know, embracing themselves. I heard Dr. Rowley talk about that, embracing equity. And we have to assist our children to understand themselves, understand what their limitations are or what their strengths are, and build on those to help them fulfill their full potential, or understand their limitations and what can be put in place to help them overcome those.
Oh, certainly. And you touched on a very key area there, which is sometimes overlooked if you don't have the engagement or you don't understand the significance of it. Tell us about that aspect as we speak to exceptional education needs in terms of special education and that focus within and the importance of it within the Division of Education.
Okay, well, I must start by saying when we hear special education, we often think of a place, and that's not necessarily special education. Special education is a range of services that's afforded to individuals who are students who struggle academically, behaviorally, emotionally, socially, in fitting in and being able to perform with the reading, the math, even achieving goals. So special education is provided usually with a team or a group of individuals. So we will have the special education teacher who usually will assist in terms of differentiating the instruction. And when I say that, I mean simplifying instruction, simplifying the work so that the child can have access to understanding the concepts and as well as enable them to achieve the task or complete the task successfully. So it's really allowing individuals or students to be able to function within their areas to which they have the capacity to do so. The school psychologist, my role specifically is to do the assessment and the diagnosis for us to get a better understanding as to who the individual is, who the child is, what are their strengths. We practically may know where the areas of challenges are, and I try not to say weaknesses, because with education and with the supports, they can really achieve. So we're presuming competence. So it's really to identify what are the strengths and using those strengths to push and to ensure that at least they can be able to meet their target goals. When we say target goals, there must be an assessment in terms of a psychoeducational assessment where we are able to identify the individual's ability to process information, problem solve, be able to organize tasks and their approach to tasks and things like that, their ability to think quickly, complete tasks quickly. So when we're talking about special education, we're really looking at a whole child approach to understanding what the child is able and cannot do. Unfortunately, sometimes we recognize the weaknesses and the challenges, and that's all we see. Sometimes we don't really see that little that the child can do. So the special education is basically targeting what the child can do, and we're assisting them. So assisting them in terms of the environment, the classroom structure, the classroom size. Those are some of the things that can contribute to positive movement where the child is concerned. All right, and when we say special education, it's not every child who is not able to read that we say needs special education services. There may be other medical factors that may impact, but we're just saying that once we understand who the child is, we try our best to provide the services that are appropriate for the child, so that we're talking about equal access. So at least we have that whole conversation and thought of equity. You know, you having that chance to be the person who you want to be. Just like you asked us this morning, what were, some of us may have said a teacher. Correct. Some said, you know, the home. It started from the home for many of us. And that is what special education is. So it's not a place, but a range of services, and it's also an attitude.
Yes. I'm happy you mentioned that. So I'd want you all to share for me, as we look at special education services, and that's really a different perspective in terms of taking a look of it. You know, the harder question would be, how effective is that for us in our Tobago space here?
Well, special education can be effective in Tobago. Yes. We have personnel. We have persons who are able, like I said, to do the assessment, some persons who may be able to do the differentiating of instruction, teach and guide the general education teachers within our schools. So when we're talking about special education, we're basically looking at this service happening in our general education classrooms, all right? We do have challenges in terms of the number of persons that we have available to provide this additional support with respect to differentiating the instruction, going in to guide the teachers in the general education classroom, because you will often hear they may not have the skill set. I won't say they do not have the skill set, it's just more challenging to treat with a child with a special education need in the classroom with the regular typical children there. And when we're talking about special education students, we're not only talking about those who may not be able to do, we are also talking about those who can succeed, those who can supersede those targets and those learning goals that we have. And we're talking about those who we consider to be creatives, the gifted. They too encompass the special education concept, and making sure that at least these children can maximize their potentials. So even within that space, while we understand what it requires, what it's supposed to look like, and what the end goal is, we still have the gaps in terms of the limited resources through our unit as well, special education student support services unit. We have the gaps within the school system as well, the traditional type of setup for schools. One teacher to how many students, maybe their need for some supports there. Right. The learning resources that would help to maximize, to help differentiate the instruction, to help the children be a little more interactive and actively participating in the classroom setting and learning. So there are a few gaps that we have within our system that it would show that it may not be as effective as it should, but I'm saying we have the capacity to do so.
And if I may, as Ms. Kent spoke, what she described may actually reference inclusive education, because you're speaking about our child in our traditional or mainstream classroom. And so those services that are for the children who may have special or exceptional needs, because we speak about our children with special needs and special education, but we are seeing more and more children on the exceptional end. And what that comes with sometimes, you may see the increase in referrals for children who may be on the spectrum, autism spectrum, but they're brilliant and providing those services within that classroom setting. But the reality is that sometimes, based on the challenges that the child may exhibit, the mainstream classroom may not always be the best fit, and that is the reality. And so what next? What is in place to support our children who may need even additional structure and services in order to excel and in order to develop those functional skills? And that pushes us into the realm of, our special schools and what needs to happen there, and the level of development and resources that need to go into support those structures so that all our children can have access.
And I hear you, and I recall quite recently Secretary Zarisha Hackett speaking in the House to that improved focus in terms of developing capacities for special needs. Yes. So I want to assume naturally that this is one of our focus areas, which makes it probably a little easier for you as professionals within the division. I want you to go on a little further to tell us in terms of what kinds of support might be necessary so that special education is able to be more successful and provide those essential and beneficial services both at the level of the individuals as well as the family, because I know you referred to the importance of the family as well with regards to the support.
Right. So I'll start. Of course, we have officers like Ms. Kent, our school psychologists, who will go in and do the assessments, because we really need to have an accurate picture of what we're dealing with. So that assessment piece is important, and timely assessment at that juncture. Also, one of the things that we are seeing the need for as we look at children who need that support in our traditional school is the idea of student aids. And a student aid is an individual going in there and being with A students. So it's different from a teacher aide who may assist the teacher within the classroom. And so we are looking and working with the division in bringing in that resource so that our children who need it after the assessment is completed and deem that this service is going to benefit them. So we don't just put a student aid with a child if that student aid service is not going to benefit them within the traditional classroom or the mainstream classroom. And so we're working on getting student aids in, special education teachers. That is a service that we provide from Student Support Services. And we're working with the division in increasing the human resource in that area. We may need to find Ms. Kent and the other school psychologists some support, because we are seeing an increase in referrals for children who are needing some additional support. And I want to pause here and say, when you talk about children with special needs, we are not only speaking about those who we obviously see who may have a physical disability, which doesn't mean that that child needs an aid, or the child who may be on the spectrum, or the child who cannot sit still and can't focus in the classroom. But at any point in any family, a child could be in need of specialized or supportive services based on maybe a trauma. A child may be riding a bike and fall and hit their head and they end up having seizures and they lose some ability. You may have a child who simply lost a parent who was so important to them, and that throws them into, depression and all that stuff and cannot focus. We have children who may have acute anxiety and may be classified as needing specialized needs. So I must make that point that special needs is not only what we see or the obvious. We have to talk about those who are the exception, who are brilliant and are moving ahead of our mainstream curriculum, and those who, because of circumstances, may end up needing specialized services. So we have our school psychologists, we have our, we need student aides, we need to build up the resource of our special education teacher, and then there are other services, behavioral therapists, partnering, and I may be jumping ahead, but we have to partner with other agencies like the Division of Health, to provide some of those supports, right? Because it would make sense having a whole bunch of speech therapists at education, having a whole bunch of speech therapists at health. We have to partner. And so we do partner with them to do some of our assessments, our diagnosing, right? Child who needs speech therapy, physical therapy, we partner with them and they help to provide some of those services. So those are some of the things that, services that we would need within the division and in Tobago, in order to provide supports to our children with special or exceptional needs.
I want you to speak to the extended support, particularly for families,
Yes.
Not the student who is in the system, but that is there additional support for families and so on within or beyond the division?
Okay, so we have a beautiful relationship and developing a beautiful relationship with the hospital.
Right.
So through the child development clinic, when a child presents with a disability, that information is submitted to us, and then we would do the necessary follow-through. I know there are various parent support groups, so we call them advocacy groups.
Yes.
So those are available, Down Syndrome Network, Autism Tobago, and there may be others. So it's more for the parents to understand that these services are available, the supports are available as well, and I want them to take active roles. And I think sometimes because we don't really understand what special education or exceptionality is, sometimes we have parents shying away.
Right.
So most of what we have been doing within the unit is to encourage parents in that, let them understand necessarily what is it that we're working with, hence the reason that Ms. Grant would have made mention of getting accurate information for what is happening with the child and understand the supports that are available. So we use the strength-based approach. So we understand the family network, we understand the family supports, and then from there, what is working best for them is what we try to lend support to so that the challenges that may present itself will be there. So there are parent support groups here in Tobago. I'm just encouraging parents to take active roles in them, participate, and come out and be the voice for the child. Like I said, we have gaps, and it's only through the parents identifying and working with us that we may be able to provide a more effective and efficient service in terms of special education and exceptional needs.
Excellent. Final 30 seconds. Any other key areas you'd like to highlight in closing?
Well, I would like to say parents work with us. Also be patient with us. And because the earlier we find interventions, the more support we can put in place so that your child will be able to navigate our educational landscape. And no parent plans for their child to have a disability. When you expect a healthy, fully functional child with no disability, but it happens. And understanding your child, that early assessment, early intervention, it helps it makes working with that child easier for you and for us. So I would say work with us. We will work with you. We make a commitment to support you. Yes, we're working on getting the resources that we need, but we will work with you. We're here, Student Support Services, to provide support to you.
All right, Marion, final 30 seconds and include contact information for persons needing to reach out to the Student Services, the Student Support Services Unit.
Yeah. Okay, so just as Ms. Grant said, parents, we really want you to work with us. Early intervention is critical. Most times we get information regarding the child or regarding the circumstances at a late stage where we can't do as much as we can with the strapped resources that we have. So early intervention is really key. We can be contacted at 299-0781, extension 3109, or you can email Ms. Susan Grant at susan.grant@thadert.gov.tt.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here on set, ladies. And, really bringing that broader perspective, as one of our viewers has said, exceptional education, yes. And then you have one, you've certainly touched the heart, Ms. Kent, one of the sweetest human beings I know. So when you all are in this kind of profession, I think it's so important, as I always make the distinction, we have teachers and we have teachers.
Yes.
In the same manner, we look for professionals, especially within this area of student support, that go beyond just a salary or a commitment when the month is here, but more importantly, really seeking to make a difference and to assist. And I'm so happy that they have highlighted the fact and the focus that we try to think of it in extreme circumstances.
Yes.
But when you look at the broader picture, the range of services that are available, and most important, it's important for us to operate within an inclusive society from every possible arm and every possible aspect. So certainly a very powerful message coming out here this morning. And thank you so much for joining us here on set for the Tobago Updates morning show. Viewers, we want to thank you for your continued love and support, and for choosing the Tobago Updates morning show. And yes, I see Ria in high energy on offset there with excitement, because I know she was glued to the screen as this interview went on this morning. But we want to thank those of you connecting with us via TV, those of you listening in on the radio on your way, and those on your device. We want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your nice car get damaged bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. Don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry. If your house get flooded out real bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. If sickness catch you off guard, I tell them never ever worry. If times fall on you real hard, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil will always be here for you.
Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Yes, everyone, it's your boy Harry here from Authentic Builders. And this Saturday, the 18th, we will be having our massive Construction Day sale and customer giveaway. And on this day, we will also be launching our new menu, sale menu of Trinidad prices right here in Tobago on blocks, steel, and lumber. And also having free giveaways for the kids. So come on down to Authentic Builders this Saturday, located right here at Old Torbay Local Road.
Welcome to Authentic Builders.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorn's Place with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorn's Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning.
Viewers, welcome back this morning to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. We're still coming to you live here from the 3rd floor, Port Mall, Lower Scarborough, Tobago. This morning we are chatting with our guest, Nicole Thomas, who is a Labor Inspector 2 attached to the Ministry of Labor. And this morning, viewers, the focus is on the role of the Labor Inspectorate Unit. Nicole Thomas, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you, how long have you been doing this job? How long have you been functioning in this role?
Give or take about 8 years.
8 years.
Possibly, yeah.
And how would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate it?
Definitely a 10.
I love that. She said definitely a 10. Let's get right into things, if we may. We're talking this morning about the Labor Inspectorate Unit. How long has this unit been in existence?
We have been in existence, I can definitely say more than 15 years in the capacity in the Labor Inspectorate Unit. We are an enforcement arm in the Ministry of Labor, and what we are responsible for is ensuring both employers and employees are aware of their rights and responsibilities. And we would do so by engaging in investigation of complaints as well as conducting routine investigations in accordance with legislation such as the Minimum Wage Act, the Minimum Wage Order, the Maternity Protection Act, as well as Part 14 of the Children's Act.
Okay.
And in these acts, it will include, but not limited to, ensuring persons receive their proper wages, overtime rates when applicable, as well as benefits such as vacation leave, sick leave, and maternity leave.
All right. Now, do these laws or do these regulations differ according to private sector, public sector?
Well, in the public sector, we utilize the Civil Servants Act as well as different terms and conditions, whereas in the private sector, the legislation would be more applicable. Apart from maternity, maternity will be across the board.
Okay. So what are the laws regarding record keeping for employees, and how is this linked to inspections?
Employers are obligated to maintain records. Now, for minimum wage employees, they are obligated to maintain records for a period of 3 years. For pregnant employees, it's a period of 5 years. Also, employers who employ persons who are of the age of 16 to 18, they are also required to maintain records. In these records, you're supposed to have the person's name, their date of birth, as well as an address. How this is linked to investigations. The labor inspectorate have powers in order to enter a premises. We can do so at reasonable time with or without notice. And upon entry, we would be required to inspect wages records. These wages records could stem from pay slips to time cards, attendance records. So when we inspect these things, it's to ensure that employees are getting their proper wages, they are getting their overtime, and employers are doing what they need to do in accordance with the law.
Isn't employing individuals between the ages of 16 and 18 against the law?
It is not against the law. No, the legal age to be employed in Trinidad and Tobago is 16 years. So no one below the age of 16 should be employed. And if found to be so, there are charges and fines that can be laid. For the employer, it is $25,000. The parent of the child could also be fined $5,000. And if the employer does not keep the young person registered, which I would have mentioned before, it's a fine of $20,000.
Okay, who is a minimum wage worker and what is the national minimum wage range?
The national minimum wage as of right now is $17.50. A minimum wage worker is somebody who would be receiving $17.50 per hour, and there is a range that goes to the ceiling of $26.25. So once you fall within that range, you would be considered a minimum wage worker.
And who is entitled to pay overtime?
Persons who would fall within that range. So once you're receiving $17.50, which is the minimum wage, and the ceiling of $26.25, you would be entitled to overtime. Now, overtime would come in within an 8-hour day or a 40-hour week. Also, persons who work on public holidays, for example, or if you're working on your off day, you would also be entitled to double time. And these rates could range from a flat rate of 8 hours, and overtime will be incurred after that 8 hours. So the next 4 hours would be time and a half, the next 4 hours would be double, and thereafter would be triple. For a public holiday, however, or an off day, you would be entitled to double time for the first 8 hours and triple time thereafter.
Okay, let's talk about maternity leave. Who is eligible for maternity leave?
That's a good question. All persons, all pregnant female employees are entitled to maternity leave. Now, maternity leave does not have a range as would be for overtime or public holidays. It's across the board. So, as I said before, all pregnant female employees would be entitled. What would differentiate with the payment and the non-payment is that a person has to work 12 months continuous with the same employer to be entitled to paid maternity leave. The employer would have to pay 1 month full pay and 2 months half pay to that pregnant individual. Now, if the person does not make the 12 months, it's not to say that they're not entitled to the maternity leave, but it would be without pay. And also, it's good to note that the maternity payments are due one payment in every 24-month period.
Okay. Is there such a thing as paternity leave?
In Trinidad and Tobago, in legislation, unfortunately, no, not right now. However, there are some companies that would include it in their policy, so they may grant 2 to 3 days paternity leave.
2 to 3 days? 2 to 3 days?
Within the policy, because unfortunately, as of right now, there's nothing that is legislated for paternity leave.
So we've got some changes to make. We've got to make some changes here, definitely. And who pays the worker for maternity leave?
The employer is obligated to pay once the employee would have made the time of the 12 months continuous. 1 month full pay, 2 months half pay. However, the National Insurance Board also provides a benefit. They provide a baby grants, as well as they provide additional payments. However, for further information on that, I would suggest that persons visit the National Insurance Board or visit their website.
Okay. How can persons identify child labor and where can reports be made?
Now, essentially, child labor is basically when you deprive a child of their childhood, their dignity, their ability to go out and play and basically be a child. Now, Child Labor Day is celebrated internationally on the 12th of June of every year. And the Ministry of Labor engages in a lot of public awareness to ensure that persons are aware of what child labor is and try to eliminate it as best as possible. Now, some persons or even children may think that doing chores at home, helping around the yard is considered child labor, but that is not so.
You need to say that one more time. These are basic chores, but they tend to believe that, oh my gosh, you're killing me here. Child labor, there must be a law against this.
Yes, definitely not, because these things would be seen as helping towards the development of a child, getting them prepared for their adult life, basically. When it goes into child labor is when the person is not allowed to go to school, they're missing out on their education. It could be problematic to their health and well-being. Now, most commonly in Trinidad and Tobago, you may see instances of child labor with persons under the age of 16 who would be selling produce on the highway, for example.
Yes, we see that.
You may see them on the beaches. So as I said before, child labor, there's a thin line between what is child labor and what is not. So as long as the person is not being able to go to school, get their education, etc., and they are in situations where it could be harmful to their health, if they're working in factories, there are chemicals, etc., these things are what is considered child labor.
And how and where can reports be made?
Now, the Labor Inspectorate unit, it can be made there. We have the number 299-0300, option 3. This is the office in the north. And the south office, it's 285-5133, option 4. Additionally, reports can be made to the Children's Authority, 800-2014, and they could also report to Childline, which is 800-4321.
And for persons who want to come in and chat with you, they've got questions or concerns, where can they find you?
Let me just get the office. Okay, in Tobago, we have an office which is located in the TAM building in Glen Road, Scarborough. The contact number is 387-0856. Unfortunately, there is not an officer located in that building. However, there is as a person there. If it is that the person decides to come into the Tobago building, they would be able to provide the information and it would be referred to a labor inspector. The Port of Spain office is located on Duke Street, Port of Spain in Trinidad, and the number is 299-0300, option 3. And in San Fernando, it's on St. James Street, and the number is 285-5133, option 4.
Okay.
Also, we have an email where persons may not be able to physically come in, but they can send an email with their contact information and an officer would reach out to them. Every day, somebody monitors the email. The email is labor.inspector@gov.tt.
Got it. Could you repeat one more time?
The email?
Email.
Right. So the email is labor.inspector@gov.tt. And also, I forgot to mention that the Ministry of Labor has their official websites where more information could be attained. It's www.labor.gov.tt.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us this morning, Nicole Thomas. All right. It's been a pleasure, and we trust that persons have got the information there. Viewers, you can also check back you can review this program. Rather, you can review this program on our social media pages. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can refer to this program for more information. Again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We want to thank all our viewers for joining us this morning. All our guests who took the time to be with us, we say thank you. Thank you, thank you. Now we're going to call it a wrap for today. We want to remind you viewers that coming up tomorrow, we've got our youth show on, all right, and it's Youth Wednesdays. We've got GMT coming up next with our girl who is back with us finally, Chanel Felix. So stay tuned. Lots more coming up after this program. And viewers, have a great day. Over to GMT. Bye-bye.
There's no place like home. But that's more of the case when your home is a contented space that provides the protection you need. Shelter is a basic human need, but it's a basic need not afforded to many of the vulnerable in our society. So last year, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine mandated Secretary Ian Pollard to, among other things, develop a social housing program to improve housing delivery in Tobago. Therefore, Home was born, home ownership made equal. And the first house is already being constructed in Milford Court.
Today will be the first of our social housing program, affordable housing program. And we'll know that this is part of the project that we went to Jamaica to look at, to replicate here in Tobago, the social housing. And today, this is the first of many that is there to come.
A year ago when the Secretary and his assistants were mandated by the Chief Secretary to have this program rolled out, persons wondered, would it work? But here we are this morning, standing on the premises of God, that it has started.
A cadre of individuals who really and truly just cannot afford. Even if the Tertiary is to sell up them a piece of land and they could afford that, they wouldn't be able to afford to build a home. And if the Tertiary builds the home, they can't afford it. But they are among the neediest of them all. And so this home ownership made equal program is really geared towards targeting people who are experiencing extenuating circumstances. Construction started on Wednesday and today is Sunday. And between Wednesday and Sunday, an entire foundation is completed for what will be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home. The first target for this program is someone who is differently able, someone who is blind. So you can see already provisions are being made to accommodate someone who is visually impaired. All the THA is paying for the home being built behind me is the actual materials. The labor is volunteered. The equipment being used, those are volunteered. The furnishings for the home have already been volunteered. So this is an example of the community coming together to help those who are most in need.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denasia.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong and the vibes is never.
Good morning, and welcome to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I mean, I can't even help but smile because it's always a pleasure to sit here and have those discussions and ask those questions that you, the people of Tobago, want to know. I'm happy to be back, and I want to thank Candace Jackson for holding it down for me while I was not here. And thank you so much, Ria, for such a hearty introduction. Now, this morning, as we continue to celebrate women in this International Women's Month, last week we had a number of powerful women on talking about a number of things from business to politics to leadership and just life in the role of a woman and in the society today. And this morning we're going to continue along those veins while sticking to our topic on Tuesdays of business and politics. And this morning I have had the pleasure of sitting with one of those very powerful women here on the island of Tobago, a woman that has made her contributions in a number of areas that span a number of sectors here on the island. She has impacted culture and festivals in the earlier parts of her days. She's even done a little thing or two where teaching has been concerned, because she started off at the Bishop's High School, if I'm not mistaken, Mrs. Lois Leslie, and the things go on and on. Welcome this morning. We are so happy to have you. You have done so much already within your time here on Earth. You have contributed so much to the development of the island and to business. You have been there at Cove, where you saw that the chairman there, not so, the CEO, sorry, at Cove during that time, 2018 to 2020, which was a really pivotal time in Tobago's infrastructural development, and especially where industry is concerned on the island, moving us from just the philosophy of development into actual tangible steps towards really developing business on the island and having us step into a place of being a bit more competitive when we talk about Tobago's place regionally and globally. Now, you also currently serve as a valuator. You work in property. I mean, you are an organizational developmental specialist specializing in training and development. But at the heart of it, you say one of the things that lie as a passion for you is culture. And there's some way that you have found the ability to weave culture into the fabric of everywhere that you have went and everywhere that you sit. This morning, we are very grateful to have you here as you come and you sit and we chat about business and politics. And from one young woman looking on at the accomplishments that you have had in your journey, I am excited to have this conversation this morning. So again, welcome. And it's a pleasure to have you here.
Good morning, Chanel, and good morning to your viewing audience. I want to say thank you. The pleasure is mine, the honor is mine to be here. And, you know, as you're making that introduction, I'm wondering who it is you're talking about, because, you know, you do things in your little spaces, and because I feel it's important to make a valuable contribution to whatever space we find ourselves in, all right? And so I am just grateful that sometimes along the way, efforts are appreciated, and you could look back, and the gratification comes from knowing that you've been able to support, and in particular for me, young people are extremely important in the mix, and being able to contribute to their development along the way, that's enough for me.
Excellent. And we can't even sit here this morning to talk about everything that you have done, because I think that would take up the bulk of the interview. But there's a concept now that we young people, you know, tend to purport of giving people their flowers now. So we want to give people their flowers, and it is time that we take the time out to give people their flowers while they are alive. And hence the reason you are here this morning. And you have done quite a number of things, but specifically when it comes to business on the island, you have been pretty successful in your own right in having business sustainability, meaning your ability to be in business for such a long time and prosper. What are some of the principles that you think you have developed over time that were the basis, that was the basis for your success?
I think there are a couple of things. One, it's the willingness to learn, and so that desire to know about organization. That's key. How do you take pieces of different things? How do you use different resources, bring them together? And how do you plan? How do you execute? That for me is core. So in terms of planning and organizing, it's key. And in terms of what I call pillars of business, not just me, people, process, products, those are the key to success. The people are important, the people who you work with, the people who you serve, how you execute your business, the processes you put in place, all right? And the product, the quality of what you deliver. Those are key. And they vary across different sectors, different industries, but the basic elements are the same.
And you really support the notion of business sustainability, not just in your own personal capacity for your business, but this is something that you continue to teach businesses as you go along, because as I said before, you are also an organizational development specialist who specialize in training other business persons for sustainability. How do you define business sustainability on a whole?
Well, when we talk about business sustainability, it is about using the resources that are available, but ensuring that we use them in responsible ways so that there's longevity, there's continuity. So we protect our space, we protect our environment, because the environment breathes life. And therefore, it's important that as we grow wealth and develop, we ensure we protect and we preserve our environment.
And you have spoken extensively about ESG. You're talking about the environment, sustainability, and governance. Tell us a bit more about that particularly.
Okay, so we talk about ESG. And as you just said, these are concerns, environmental concerns, social concerns, and governance concerns. So in a nutshell, for example, Forbes says, and I will quote them, it's a strategy you use. Basically, you put your money to work where the companies that use the resources strive to make the world a better place, in essence. And so the environment, I mean, we just have to look around. We don't have to look far. We're having issues. We have landslides. The climate has changed, and the challenges are different. Our beautiful coastal areas are under pressure. At nights, we into March, but the nights are still very cold, very unusual. So things have been happening very subtly, and now it's in everybody's face. And it's interesting that many of the issues that cause the problems that we're having don't originate here. But because we are small island states, okay, we are impacted, and we are even more challenged to mitigate. And so the environment is important. How we use resources in sustainable ways that ensure that we don't overuse. I think about, for example, we have an industry, the crab industry. Over the years, that has been under pressure because we've caught too many of the crabs, too many young crabs, not ready enough for market. These are the little things that make a big impact. And as you say, one job fills bucket.
Correct.
So as we pile them up, innocently sometimes, and sometimes we've just lost that sense of concern for others.
And when we hear about climate change, it has been used as such a buzzword of recent that people often forget the direct impact. And you've highlighted a number of the direct impact that we are seeing here on the island, where we talk about coastal erosion and a number of other things. But for some reason, this does not necessarily resonate with businesses. People think oftentimes that this is the responsibility of the government to ensure environmental sustainability. So tell us a little bit about the role that business persons should play where environmental sustainability is concerned.
And there are a number of little things. How we use energy, okay? And COVID has taught us, for example, during the COVID, one of the things we had to do was to shut down the air conditioning systems. Better use of our energy resources. How we dispose of waste. And even as business people, sometimes you have a supplier, a service provider who comes in and takes your trash out. It's important for you to also know that that service provider is disposing of the trash responsibly. So like you say, your business, your concern doesn't end when the truck moves out with your stuff. It's important to know that they're not littering and blocking up the waterways and things like that. These are some of the things as business people we have to be concerned about. When we establish structures, compliance, building regulations, environmental regulations.
This is an area of a lot of contention where buildings are concerned for businesses, and you would know because you are heavily involved in the real estate and the valuation. We have businesses building buildings and then looking for approvals after. How does this impact the environment, and how does it impact even the real estate market? Because we have a situation where people are doing and then asking, as opposed to asking before they do.
Absolutely.
So talk to us a little bit about that and how that relates to environmental sustainability, the whole idea of doing before we get the permissions.
Well, the whole thing is about planning development, and that's part of the sustainability piece, right? You have to plan development, and therefore the statutory authorities are there to guide because, again, it's a science. It's been studied. Things like drainage, things like where you place your buildings, and so those are important. So here's the thing. Within the last 2 years, when the rains have come, what have we noticed in terms of flooding in Tobago?
We have seen some floods.
We didn't know about that in Tobago, but
exactly.
it is dramatic, and it hasn't happened overnight, but now it is so obvious that we are in a place where we have to act. And therefore, even from the regulatory authority standpoint, it's important to look at these things because these are the things that impact not just the businessman, but everybody. You drive in your vehicle and you have challenges.
But there's a whole cultural aspect of it's better to do and ask for permission than to ask and get a no. So it's better to do and then say sorry for what you have done than to go ahead and ask for permission and then you get denied the permission to do so. I think that's a cultural thing that we have here. We have people adding on to their houses, adding businesses to residential properties, So, and that also has a community impact. So talk to us about that, the connection between that sustainability and the community impact where the environment is concerned. We look at it from the wider view of how it impacts, the entire island, and we see how, it impacts natural disaster. But even from the community building perspective, talk to us about that community sustainability.
The communities are key because that's how we live. We live in communities. We are a small island. We have small communities. And so sometimes, listen, the only constant is change. We have to change mindsets, paradigm shifts. And so do and then ask for permission. Just understand what it is doing, what is happening, not just to other people now, but it's impacting you in your businesses. Because it's absolutely. It's impacting your property, other people's property.
How developments that are happening around the area, damages their property, how it impacts, their property.
The landslides, the everything. So, and again, enforcement is going to be important, but way beyond the enforcement, because we should not be in the place where enforcement is the key. Education. Education, understand how it impacts you, how it impacts me, right in the village. How do we get around this? What are we doing? What did we do in years gone by to prevent this happening? And so we need to revisit some things. We need to rethink. And the communities, like I was saying to you, for me, I think it's important in this whole effort for us to wake up our communities even more.
Right. And that, as we touch on that, we can move into the whole S in the ESG. And we talk about the social aspect of business sustainability. And one of the things, similarly to the whole environment, people think that environmental sustainability often is the responsibility of the policymaker. People feel like social development and social security nets are specifically the responsibility of policymakers and politicians as well. But a lot of the times, businesses are calling on communities to support them. But the question lies, how are businesses supporting the community? So touch a little bit on that for me as we talk about business sustainability and the social aspect of that, how the community comes into play.
Well, when we think about what a community is, it's really a group of people living in close commune, adopting similar a value system, cultural traits and ethics, and attempting to live productively and harmoniously. The business community is part of that community. And so yes, that support must go two ways. all right? And being a good neighbor in the community, adopting communities. And that is important because these are the communities that you, as a business person, want to be sustained in order for you to have that continuous flow of income generation in your businesses, all right? So again, when we talk about the social, it's about our relationships, how we relate, how we help each other, how we teach each other, all right? And it's important from in terms of the ethics that businesses employ when dealing with other members of the community. I talked about the communities. When we see our community centers becoming once again, and our multipurpose complexes, becoming a hub of activity, those sometimes are the nesting beds of businesses, small, informal businesses that really, sometimes are really the bedrock for us, small island. And communities are powerful because communities drive enthusiasm, they drive ideas, they drive innovation, and so the policymakers are there to support and to provide the infrastructure. But certainly, it is the people in the communities that make the difference. They are the ones who determine where we go as an island economy, where we go as that vibrant Tobago beyond.
But let's just be a little bit honest and realistic. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, we often think about the huge corporate firms, the ones that are able to, pay a large number of employees, and we think these are the ones that have a social responsibility. But how do we begin to entrench the idea into even the small business owner that you have a social responsibility within your community?
The how. I think that is what has been beating us for a little while. And introspection is important because we need to come together, we need to talk. We've seen efforts of that recently, and that's awesome, right? But you're right, it is not just the large corporation. So let me give you just a simple example. The farmer. In the village, there's a school in the village. There's a little agri space in the school. This is where we can pass on that love for the land and the respect for the land, and to teach and to inculcate that sense of agriculture, food sustainability. Again, one drop, one drop.
But how do we create a culture where people become less dependent on the government as we get into the whole conversation of governance, and begin to understand that the responsibility for development and the shifting of the economy is one where it's a dance. So we all have to join the dance. It's not necessarily just one person goes up and entertains, but it's a dance that we have to all take part in. We all have a role to play, especially the business community. How are we going to go about changing the culture of simply just thinking that the development that we so desire is on the responsibility of the government?
That's an interesting question, and that is something that we could sit and talk about endlessly. And for me, it has to start with self. It has to start with, we talk about being real, it has to start with us understanding as a people the value of work. And to understand and appreciate and agree that in order to move from where we are, since we grumble all the time, means that there's some things we're not happy about in our space. But how do we move from where we are to where we want to be? And each has to ask self, what is my contribution here? What is my responsibility here? So again, I talk about the waking up of the communities. And so we have to start having these hard conversations, honest conversations. And then there's also the need sometimes for some decisions that may not necessarily be the popular decisions, But in the interest of our space and sustainability, sometimes those are required.
I totally agree with you, and as you spoke, some ideas began to come into mind, and I was thinking about, even as businesses go to get financing, whether it be from the government or from the banks, there should be some aspect where they are responsible for giving back to the community as a requirement for the financing. So there should be an aspect of, okay, if you are indeed coming for this money and you want to do this, you have to show us that this portion of the contribution goes back into the community some way, in some shape or form, that allows for that community sustainability, whether it's a requirement to employ members of the area that the business is located in, or whether it's a food establishment that commits to eradicating food waste by donating the food to the less fortunate after a day's work when they have food left behind. These type of things that we can put into place can really help to establish the community, while not necessarily forcing businesses to look into their community contribution, but creating a culture where business is not just for profit, but for overall community and economic development on the island.
Definitely, definitely. And, even from the standpoint of, agencies providing capital support, financial support for young entrepreneurs, or young age is a number, for entrepreneurs who have that desire to be in the productive sector. Incentives for those whose organizational structure is such that it pays enough attention to the environment and to practices that will support and sustain the environment. So there are I think a number of ways, but again, we have to come together and look at ideas. Not every idea that is working elsewhere will work here. But let's look at us and tailor our practices to suit us, what we have, where we've been, what our challenges are, and
also from the governance perspective, there is the importance of having the administration of the day, the leadership of the day, understand the importance of stakeholder consultation. You talk about the fact that the ideas don't necessarily come from the policymaker. Oftentimes the ideas are in the community. Sometimes the ideas are on the talk shows as we sit here and we ventilate a number of ideas. But there is the importance of listening to the public.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that, the importance of that stakeholder consultation, and how, that continuous communication with the citizens is important in the whole governance aspect of that ESG model that you talk about when we talk about the environment, social, and governance in the whole scheme of business sustainability.
Well, it's important because when you look at the role of leadership, is to you guide, you direct, you put systems in place to support a direction that is agreed upon, all right? In terms, again, in the community, every time we have an opportunity to meet and talk and touch, that's value right there. Personally, for me, I will say that there comes a time when we meet, we talk, but the action, if we don't, the action is key. And even while we take action, we continue to talk because we always have to reassess, all right? But I think those forums are really awesome. And I think a lot of good ideas, information, and it is an opportunity as well to impart information to communities, to heighten awareness of these same ESG elements we talk about. Sometimes we are accustomed doing things in a particular way, but until someone takes the time to engage us and say, listen, I know this is how you're accustomed doing it, but take a look at what are the ramifications. So education is important. And these are opportunities for informal education, all right, that go quite a long way in terms of changing behaviors, changing mindsets, and changing some aspects of the culture that we feel could be improved.
Definitely. And I want to stop here for us to take a little break and come back. When we get back, we talk more about how women have been impacting business globally, regionally, locally, just as yourself, and the impact that they are having on really shaping the society. So guys, we'll be back really soon, right after this short break.
So wake up and hear me neighbor, 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power, we are people in the sun.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Yes, everyone, it's your boy Harry here from Authentic Builders. And this Saturday, the 18th, we will be having our massive construction day sale and customer giveaway. And on this day, we will also be launching our new menu, sale menu of Trinidad prices right here in Tobago on blocks, steel and lumber. And also having free giveaways for the kids. So come on down to Authentic Builders this Saturday, located right here at Old Storby Local Road.
Welcome to Authentic Builders.
Everybody only worrying. Never ever worry. Don't mind how things looking hard. I tell them never ever worry. If your nice car get damaged bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. Don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry. If your house get flooded out real bad, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil is always right here for you. I tell them never ever worry. If sickness catch you off guard, I tell them never ever worry. If times fall on you real hard, I tell them never ever worry. What I'm saying is true. So just consider Tatil will always be here for you.
Never worry about a thing. Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denise.
Let's go. It's a brand new morning, rise up.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. This morning we've been chatting with one of the powerful women here on the island, Mrs. Boyce Leslie. And we have been talking about business, sustainability, and the environment, social, and the impact of governance on how businesses operate here on the island. You know, we've touched on a number of things, and one of those topics that we've discussed a little bit is, you know, the importance of businesses taking on some of the responsibility that has often been deemed the government's responsibility. When we talk about environmental sustainability, interacting with the community, and just giving back. And as we move forward, we want to touch a little bit more on the International Women's Month. And we are talking about a number of women who have had great impact on you personally, but has had a global impact in the areas that they have functioned in. And one of the women that you highlighted was Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And tell us a little bit about why you would have highlighted her specifically, because you told me a bit about her.
Well, she was actually the first woman elected as a head of state in an African country. All right, she was from Liberia. But she had a powerful message, and it says, The size of your dreams must always exceed your current capacity to achieve them. If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Well, and you know, we hear that all the time, but we never knew that that saying came from a black woman, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and
Yes.
she was from
Liberia.
And we always hear that, you know, if your dreams are not big enough that they scare you, then that they're not big enough. Now, you have impacted a number of young women, and you have been impacted by powerful women. And what is one of the, give a message to the young women here on the island, especially a lot of young women that are in business, right? People are sacrificing their mothers, their daughters, their students. A lot of them work full-time jobs, but they have such a huge dream that often scare them. And sometimes here on the island, you know, we have this small island mentality where we often think sometimes it's better I don't even say what I want to do. I should just hush my mouth and don't say anything because you're so afraid of being discouraged by other persons kind of putting their own subconscious fears onto you. Tell young women, how do we overcome this idea of kind of, you know, sheltering our dream or sheltering where we want to go because of that fear? Well, what would people say? You know, I didn't come from it, or, you know, I may not be the one who looks like I have the capacity to fulfill.
Okay, so I usually say a couple of things. One, there's only one person who can walk your journey, and that's you. Secondly, when you have a desire to do something, that doesn't just come out of nowhere. It was divinely placed there because within you is the potential to achieve that. So it's a question of not underrating yourself, but finding your power and standing in your power and understanding that life will cooperate with you when you signal your intention. Just ensure the intentions are good intentions. Ensure that as you walk, you don't walk for yourself only. But again, you walk in a community, and therefore your efforts must also impact and benefit others. And I always believe a woman or a man's talents always makes room for them. So it is about understanding too that others who may try to discourage is because sometimes they need some encouragement too, because they have some unfulfilled dreams. So hence the reason why as women and as young girls, we need to support each other. We need to find that well that will provide the nutrients and the strength and the nourishment to understand the power within ourselves. And we ask that the men in our space continue to do better every day, to open, make room, and ensure that we are provided with a platform that allows for equity and allows us to be our best selves.
And you touched a little bit there on some gender equality, you know, especially, you know, as a female boss being in a number of different industries. You were the first ever chairman of the Tobago Festival Commission, and that was during a time where I would like to think that there were not as much powerful women in such powerful positions at the time. Tell us a little bit about, you know, from then to now, have you seen a positive transformation where that gender equality is concerned in business? And how can women, you already spoke about men making room, but how can women also contribute to making it easier as well for other women in leadership?
Mm-hmm. What immediately comes to mind again is we are sisters, support each other. You know, replace fear with faith in ourselves and what we are able to do as women, as sisters together. You know, we are a nation and a Caribbean region of powerful women. Women have been in business from centuries. If you go back and you hear about the higglers and the hustlers and the traffickers, now when you Google trafficker now, you get a whole different dynamics to that. It's about human trafficking and so on. But women have really been providing backbone support for the development of our society and our economy, all right? And it's just that some areas have been male-dominated. Now women are forging pathways. So yes, the impetus grows and the power of the united female is kind of invincible. But it doesn't minimize anybody else in the space. It just says that, and hence the term equity as opposed to equality, you know. It's about providing us women with the resources. And even among women, the resources required are different. So that we all, at the end of the day, will have the best chance of success.
And who are some of the women within the region that you think stand out to you when you think about successful women and women that you have often looked to for a little bit of strength and fortitude along your journey?
Okay. So, I mean, currently we see, okay, a very powerful Mia Motley. But you know, I also know a very powerful grandmother and a powerful mother and a powerful teacher. And I go into the local space. I come home and I have to speak about women like Pinky Alum. I have to speak about women like Verlene Bob. I have to speak about Dr. Mack. You know, we are provided with so much inspiration by these women of strength. You know, it's not an abusive power, but it's a beautiful power in terms of empowering, being empowered, and also empowering other young ones along the way.
Excellent, excellent. And so you told me that you have a message before you go today. And when we look at environmental sustainability in relation to the R's, you know, you spoke about that, and that is quite powerful. Is this something that you created? Is it a template that you created, or is it something that you would have pulled from a particular framework?
Okay, so I pulled it from a framework. Okay. And you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, you know, because everything that comes across us is, we don't even know the origins. Because you know what? When God provided us with a space called Earth and nature, wisdom also came. So the 7 R's, and if you Google, you'll recognize that people have different mixes in terms of the R's, but they are core principles. And what they're saying is, we have to rethink how we do business, rethink how we live, because business and politics is about how we live, are about how we live. We have to refuse to do some things. So for example, we have to refuse to throw the plastic bottle in the river anymore. These are some of the things we have to refuse to do because we're killing our space. We have to reduce our consumption. It's amazing. Over time, we have become huge consumers. And sometimes, some of the things we consume, we really don't need, you know. And these are the things that are also indirectly, more often, creating problems for us. We have to reuse some things. You know, if you, beautiful shoe you're wearing, you go down the road and the bottom comes off and you say, you see me, I have no time to go buy no cobbler now, a long time thing. And throw that way and I'm gonna buy a new shoe. But you're creating another kind of problem because it's just one shoe on top of a number of other things. But if we pull it out and get fixed, give it some more life and use, we are helping to sustain our space. And if we think in terms of, if we do that, then somebody not going to have a business. No, what will happen from this new direction is that we give opportunity for new businesses that are more environmentally enriching to develop and to flourish. Repair I talk about the repair. Regift. You know, for example, Christmas, family, gift giving, and you buy gift bags, and everybody gets their gift in a gift bag. So when everybody takes their gift out, pull back the bag and put it away next Christmas. Reuse the bag. And this is just a simple, basic example. There are so many others we could think about. But the notion is, as we find ways to re-gift things, recycle things, repurpose things, find new and different ways to make use of things rather than dump them. Simple. And you can be as simple as that in your home, your organic food material. Put it in a compost heap. Let it nourish the earth, backyard garden. And then it goes beyond that to the larger corporation in terms of things like your emissions, things like your disposal of waste, which we mentioned. Digitization. The United Nations this year is also talking about digital. The notion of young women and girls into the STEM arena. But the notion of digitization, the paper, saving the trees, it's a serious thing. And now we've seen more than ever, these things, ultimately, there's a price to pay. Are we willing to continue paying the price? We have had so many road closures in recent times. We look at, just take a drive around Tobago. And so I'm saying, let us rethink, let us reorganize, let us revisit, let us rejoin, and come back and work hand in hand to ensure that as we want to do business in this space and churn productivity, churn wealth, we have to do it in ways that sustain our environment. All right? We have lost so much of the beauty and glory of the Bucca Reef as one great example. We have another one up in East, in Speyside. Let's ensure that doesn't undergo the kinds of trauma the Bucca Reef underwent.
Definitely.
And these are some of the things that we have to really get back to. So this little conversation was just food for thought, because this topic, I mean, I don't know, we will go on and on and on and on. There's so many other conversations to come out of this. But beyond the conversation, it's the action that we can take now to look at how we live and how we do business, but keeping our focus on sustaining our beautiful Tobago beyond.
Yes. And would you say, as we close off, that you are a powerful woman because powerful women existed before you?
Absolutely. Whatever, I've learned to hone my power because I've been taught to do that by some of the most awesome, powerful women who walk the globe. Tobago is rich.
And we have a lot of those powerful women in Trinidad and Tobago specifically.
Absolutely.
And they are really impacting or have truly impacted the development that we see here today. And
Yes, you know. So these are some of our beautiful and powerful Tobago women. Just look at them, you know. They have. And their influence, the influence has extended beyond the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. Even some, I mean, there's so many we can't even, these are just a few. And even when you social media, and we come home. We come home. So, Annis Alfred, Dr. Mark, Beverly, Ramsey Moore. I mean, women taking, doing what they do best. Building, nurturing, loving, and just blossoming.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, it has been a pleasure having this conversation with you this morning. Such a breath of fresh air, such beautiful energy when you walked into the studio, lit up the entire studio this morning. We thank you so much for your time. We thank you so much for coming and sharing the wisdom, and we hope that the business community would be open to really sitting and listen as you talk more about the ESGs and the importance of incorporating it into the overall sustainable development plan of businesses on the island. So again, Tobago, you have heard it here. We have had the conversation with one of Tobago's most powerful and successful women, having her impact in her own space, in her own right, having moved from teaching to culture to being the head of Cove as the CEO. I mean, you name it, being one of those powerful evaluators in the space where real estate and real estate development is concerned. And I mean, the list goes on and on. She's one of those really powerful and impactful women here that continue to forward the development of our island, and one of those people who we are taking the time to give their flowers while they are alive. And she even highlighted a number of women who inspired her and continues to inspire her in their own right, have done the same on the island of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, and even globally. And so, guys, we thank you for taking the time out this morning to sit and chat and be a part of the conversation with us. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. And thank you for choosing Tobago Updates as the #1 station for your broadcast here on the island of Tobago. Guys, thank you.
And before we go, Chanel, let me just stick a pin. I just want to say I'm sitting here, and it is my pleasure to be looking at one of Tobago's powerful young women.
Oh, my God.
Powerful young women.
you.
And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for what you do, and may you continue to walk in your power. Not be afraid of it, but embrace it with humility and ensure that you use it not just for Chanel, but you use it for our space and the global space.
Yes.
And thank you, Tobago Updates.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear my neighbor. 60,000 people strong.